Good afternoon. We are joined by White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Madam Secretary.
Oh my gosh, Angela, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I look forward to our conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And hello, Atlanta.
Thank you. We are delighted to have you as our guest today. So I don't know if you remember, but we met last spring at
Yes.
the White House when I was there as part of Black Women in Radio.
I do, I
You
do.
remember? You
Yes, yes,
remember?
yes, yes. I was just telling my colleague Ro about that. I was like, oh yeah, I remember Angela. Yep, I remember the
Yes,
name.
yes, yes.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, what I remember most about you, aside from your beautiful makeup job, which you told me you did yourself,
Yes.
how gracious you were because you actually went around the room and took selfies with all 39 of us.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I always say I know I stand on many shoulders in being the first in this role, and I know what it feels like to representation matters. And so when I'm in a room of Black women, especially an esteemed group like this, I wanted to make sure that I came in, said hello, and let folks know that I am standing on many shoulders here, and I truly appreciate it. And I think it's important. It's important to not forget that. So I try not to forget that every day, even when the job is super hard. I try not to forget.
Well, I imagine on many days that it is. Let me start by asking you, how is the president feeling since his recovery from COVID?
I think he feels great. He feels really good. And look, you heard the president just recently, this earlier this week, Wednesday night, give a really impactful, important remarks about the moment that we're in, this historic moment that we're in. And he talked about passing the torch to the vice president. He talked about what he's been able to do and get done for the American people these last 3.5 years. And it's been astronomical, right? If you think about the economy, bringing it back, restarting the economy, he started off making sure that the American Rescue Plan passed through. Only Democrats passed that through, and it really gave money to folks who really need it, put money in pockets during the pandemic and once in a century pandemic when businesses were closing, schools were closing. That American Rescue Plan was so key, and it also cut child poverty in the Black community by more than 50%. Incredibly important at that time. And so, look, small businesses in the Black community is booming. We see when we think about wealth, Black wealth, it's gone up by 60%. So he wanted to make sure that no communities that are normally left behind, have not been. So he talked about that. He talked about the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. He talked about beating big pharma, making sure insulin for our elders, our seniors, were capped at 35 bucks a month, pardon me, where some of them were paying 400 bucks a month. So he talked about the things that he's done in the next 6 months. So I think it was an important time, important moment. We're excited about what's to come ahead. We're behind the vice president, Kamala Harris, 110%. And he feels good. He feels good.
Well, that is wonderful. What would you say is the most significant piece of legislation that the Biden Harris administration has passed for Black Americans?
Well, what I will say is every piece of legislation that has passed has equity at the center of it. You think about that. American Rescue Plan, which I just mentioned, the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. We're talking about broadband, right? That is so important to our communities and many communities. You're talking about making sure we're getting roads and bridges fixed in our communities. That's so important. The Inflation Reduction Act, which is beating big pharma. You think about our seniors and Medicare and being able to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies and what that means for our seniors, what that means for important medication, whether it's for diabetes, whether it's for cancer. And we have many people in our communities that are spending thousands of dollars or sitting around their kitchen table trying to figure out what is the thing that they could pay for. So lowering costs in healthcare, expanding the Affordable Care Act, all of those things, healthcare, energy. And if you think about the economy, as I just mentioned before, every piece of legislation is so important. The CHIPS and Science Act, creating good paying jobs where many of those jobs, you don't need a college degree and they're six-figure paying jobs. So everything that we have done, everything that this president has done has equity at the center of it, does not forget our communities or any communities that are left behind. And I know some Americans across the country, especially communities like ours, are feeling that right now. And so there's so much more to be done, so much more work to be done. You think about HBCUs, more than $16 billion that are invested, that the president has invested in HBCUs. That is more than any other administration. Student loan debt. We wanted to do something much bigger, right? We had legislation, Republicans got in the way. The president still came in and canceled over $160 billion in student debt for more than 4.5 million borrowers. You think about housing, how housing is so tough for many communities that are underserved. And now you have HUD, who has made sure that we've taken away some of the discriminatory policies, so it makes it easier for folks who want to buy a home. And it goes on and on and on. I just talked about a few things that the president has been able to do for our community.
Yes, and he has done some amazing things. So tell me, what do you think about this powerful and resounding wave of diverse support that is galvanizing around Vice President Harris?
Look, the Kamala Harris, the Vice President Harris, who I had the opportunity to work with during the campaign. I was her chief of staff for the 3 months when the president announced her as her running mate. She has been, and also obviously worked closely with her in the past almost 4 years in this administration. She's always been a fighter for the people. And throughout her own barrier-breaking career, she's dedicated herself to fighting for everyone, everywhere, every single day. And since being sworn in, she's worked to make sure that to bring people together, to advance opportunity, deliver for families, and protect fundamental freedoms. Look, it's not surprising to me that people have come around her the past, and gosh, I've lost track of how many days, 4 or 5 days. I mean, we have to remember, yes, she has been a critical partner of this president, and everything that I just listed she's been a partner in that, in getting that done. But she was a senator, she was an attorney general for the largest state in this country, and so she has been there for a long time and has been certainly a great leader. And so we are very much excited for her, very, very much excited for her. I mean, if you think what she's been able to do as leading for the fight for reproductive rights and maternal health care, think about our community and maternal health care, how much that is a big issue, and fighting to make sure that women have the right and the freedom to make decisions on their own body. She was the first sitting vice president to visit Planned Parenthood clinic. She is leading also on gun violence prevention as the president set up the first White House gun violence prevention office. And that is something that he was able to do. She's leading that effort. So look, we're excited for her. We think she's going to continue to do great things. We still have 6 months of this administration left. Obviously, she's now out there campaigning. There's a lot at stake, Angela. There's a lot of at stake, as you know.
Yes, absolutely. So let me change gears and ask you about yourself. What is most challenging for you in your capacity as White House press secretary? Because you too have made history in your role. So what's hardest for you?
Look, I'll say this, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve in this role and to represent the President of the United States as the White House press secretary. I am number 35, so there has not been many of us. And certainly I am the first Black, first person of color, first one. I represent the queer community too. There's so many communities that I get to lift up and so many shoulders that I stand on. Look, it's not easy in this job. It's not. You know, this has not been we are living in a political time that is incredibly difficult, incredibly, the politics here is divisive. It's very divisive. And that's why one of the things that you hear from this president is about unity, coming together, and making sure that we're fighting for our democracy and freedoms, fighting for what's right for this country, the future of this country, for the American people. So it's always a battle, it's always a fight, But I walk into this campus, this White House campus, Angela, and I'm in my office talking to you right now. My office is a stone throw away from the Oval Office, a stone throw away from the briefing room where I get to stand behind that lectern. By the way, it's the Dunnigan Payne lectern, a lectern that I got to name after the first two Black women who were journalists and part of the White House Press Corps. And so now that is the Dunnigan Payne lectern, which I was honored to do that this past November of last year. And so, look, it is an honor to stand behind that lectern, to do something that is so critical, right? We are exercising democracy every time that we have a briefing. It is the freedom of the press. People around the world watch those briefings and watch how I get to go back and forth, that do a little give and take with the press, and how journalism is so important. And this president brought that back. He brought that back to the White House. So while the politics in this time is difficult, it is an honor and the privilege, and I get to do that, Angela, for another 6 months.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we will be so happy to continue to have you and to look at you and your beautiful makeup every day. I just love your makeup job. It is always just so beautiful. I'm like, I
Thanks,
love
Angela.
her makeup.
Thanks,
But
Angela.
you do an
Thank you.
amazing job anyway. So thank you so much. And I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon on WAOK, and promise me that you'll join us again in the near future.
Oh, I promise you will hear my voice on the airwaves on your show once again. And I'm always excited and look forward to talking to you, Angela, and all of the people of Atlanta. I love Atlanta. Atlanta's a
Thank
great city.
you and have a great day. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Yes,
Thanks.
that is Karine Jean-Pierre, White House Press Secretary for the Biden-Harris administration.